And welcome to the last session of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, 19th in all over the last, I don't know, 1.5 years. And so it will be very useful because every time I summarize what I have covered earlier. So today you will have the summary of the entire Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So, you know, just the Kaivalya bit we'll expand, but before that, the summary of everything which is covered in the book will be there. So let's start. The first chapter is Samadhi Pada. And in Samadhi Pada, Patanjali addresses a advanced yogi, a yogi who has already achieved a meditative state and can go into dhyana and samadhi. So he addresses that person. But he defines yoga very differently from most other people define yoga as some kind of a joining between Atman and Paramatman, some variation of that. But he gives a very, very precise and different, definition. And that is the hallmark of Patanjali. He's very, very exact and accurate in every shloka of his. So he defines it as Chitta Vritti Nirodha, Yogasya Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which is second shloka in the book. What you have to understand is that we all have a consciousness. So we have a body, we have a mind, and we have consciousness. And the essential nature of that consciousness is pure awareness. It is complete stillness. It's bliss. But we do not experience it as such because on the consciousness, the mind projects its thoughts, its emotions, its feelings, and the consciousness keeps getting modified into its thoughts, emotions, feelings, just like waves in an ocean or waves on a lake. So when there are waves on a lake, you can't see the bottom. The bottom is still, but you can't see it because there are waves. These emotions, thoughts, feelings are all disturbing the consciousness. And therefore, you are caught up in those emotions, feelings, and thoughts. And you cannot experience that the essential nature of your consciousness is stillness. So these vrittis, and these are called vrittis in yoga. And the yoga is defined as the stoppage of these vrittis. So when you stop these vrittis, when those waves become still, then you can see the surface of the lake, complete stillness. Then you can see the essential nature of your consciousness, which is stillness. So this is the definition of yoga. Then he says that there are 5 categories of vrittis. The vrittis are produced by 5 things. So as I told you, he's very precise. So 5 things. The first, he says, is praman, which is right knowledge. So right knowledge is there's a rope on the road and you see it and it registered in your mind as a rope. So it's right knowledge. What is there, the mind registered is as such. But that praman, that kind of stimulus creates a disturbance on the consciousness. So it creates a vritti. So pramana, which is right knowledge, creates a vritti. Similarly, wrong knowledge, what is called viparyaya, also creates a vritti. So you see a rope on the road, but it registers in your mind as a snake. Wrong knowledge, but it also creates a vritti, right? Vikalpa, which is imaginary knowledge. You're sitting and daydreaming and imagining things. That also creates a disturbance. It creates a flutter in the consciousness, right? Nidra, this is very important. Nidra is deep sleep. That also creates a vritti. Now, this needs explanation. In deep sleep state, when not a dream state of the sleep, but in the deep sleep state, what happens is the mind folds up. There's no mind, right? Then why is it called still there's a disturbance? Because when you wake up in the morning, you have a feeling, I slept well. So the consciousness was still there. And the consciousness for its object had nothing. So it was, the consciousness was, the object of consciousness was nothing. And that nothing as an object of consciousness also creates a disturbance in the mind. Okay, so Nidra is also, or no knowledge. No knowledge is also creates a vritti. And finally, Smriti, which is past knowledge, which is memory. So you remember things and that causes vritti. So right knowledge, wrong knowledge, imaginary knowledge, no knowledge, and past knowledge. All these create vrittis, right? And the method to stop vrittis are abhyas and vairag. These are two engines of yoga. Abhyas, constant practice of yoga. Whatever stage you are in the asana pranayama state, so be it. Dhyana, samadhi state, so be it. But it's the constant, daily, uninterrupted practice. Abhyas is one engine of yoga. And vairagya. Vairagya is not having attachments to things outside of you, not having attachments to objects, you're not grasping at things outside for your happiness. Okay. So, Abhyas and Vairagya are the two engines and they feed each other. As you progress in Abhyas, Vairagya develops automatically. As you develop more Vairagya, Abhyas also becomes nice for you. So they both feed each other. Now, so the objective of Abhyas and Vairagya is to reduce the vrittis. And why do you want to reduce the vrittis? Because you want to develop a meditative state. A person who is very his mind is always going out, is very disturbed, cannot sit and meditate, cannot even sit still for a moment. So you need to develop a meditative state, what he calls samadhi prajna or samadhi consciousness, or samapati, which is actually the ability to go into a meditative state. So by reducing the vrittis, the mind becomes quiet and you can develop a meditative state, at which point you can start practicing dharana, dhyana, samadhi. All right. And then he finally says, he describes samadhi. Samadhi is kind of most beautifully described amongst all our texts by Patanjali. He says there are 4 stages of samadhi. So what happens is that there is an object on which you meditate. So suppose, let's take an example, you're meditating on the mantra Om. आप ओम के ऊपर आप meditate कर रहे हैं, ओम के ऊपर आप ध्यान दे रहे हैं. So the first step is that you knock off all other thoughts and only focus on Om. Okay, so that is dharana, your dharana shakti. That means you can have single one-pointed focus on Om. In samadhi, what happens is that there is a very natural flow of your consciousness towards Om. You don't have to make any effort. But in the first step, which is called vitarka, first step of samadhi is vitarka, your mind is still working. Your thoughts are still there. You're completely absorbed in Om, but your mind is still working. So you're thinking about Om, you're thinking of its meaning, you're thinking of its symbol. So the mind is still working, but it's at this level. From this level, you're completely absorbed in Om. So that's vitarka. The vitarka then matures into vichara. That means the thinking stops. You don't have to make any effort. You just have to be there. At some point, the thinking will stop and you just become an observer. Shakshi. You become a witness. So you're just witnessing Om in that state, right? So it's a higher level. And the third level, which is even higher, is called Shananda, which is reflection. So what happens is then the mind becomes so clear in that meditation. All thoughts have gone. There's nothing over there. It becomes like a mirror, and the Om starts reflecting in the mirror. So you are, in that reflection of Om, Shananda. That's the third stage. And the next higher stage is Asmita, or absorption. So then you completely get absorbed in Om. So the yogis say, I don't know whether Om is meditating on me or I am meditating on Om. So that's the way they describe it. They're completely absorbed in Om.
In one.
Yeah, in one. They're one with Om, right? But even now, this is very good, very nice feeling. Yogis come out very refreshed and in a state of bliss. But even now, it is still sabit samadhi. That means it still has got the seeds of your karma. So there is still movement in the consciousness. Vritti jnani. The final stage is reached when your seeds of karma are completely destroyed, completely burnt. This is called nirbij. From sabit, you go to nirbij samadhi. Nirbij samadhi will happen on its own. It's a grace, and we'll talk about it. Today's talk will cover that. When the seeds of karma are burnt, and that is when you attain Kaivalya, moksha, nirvana, whatever you choose to call it. The word Kaivalya, the root word is keval, that means alone. There's nothing else. It's in oneness, in non-duality, there's nothing else. So it is alone. There's no other. There's no duality. That's the origin of the word Kaivalya. Okay. So from there, the second chapter is called Sadhana Pada. In Samadhi Pada, as I said, he addresses a yogi who has achieved Samadhi Prajna or a meditative state. But here now he is addressing the mid-level and the novice level yogi. So for the mid-level yogi, the middling yogi, he recommends Kriya Yoga. And the purpose of Kriya Yoga is to move towards, the Samadhi Prajna or the meditative state. So this has got three things. One, the first step is tapas or tapa, and which is the continued practice of Ashtanga Yoga. And by doing this tapas, you reduce the hold of desires and ego identification. You develop vairagya, and it brings the mind to peace. And when the mind is at peace through tapas, through this continued practice of Ashtanga Yoga, abhyas and vairagya, by doing that is tapas, right? When the mind is brought to peace, then the next level is swadhyaya or self-study. And it is nothing very complicated. It's simply becoming a witness of your inner mechanism, just watching your thoughts rise, stay there, disappear, your feeling rise, stay there, disappear, emotion rise, stay there, disappear, anger comes, joy comes, sadness comes, just comes and goes. So you just become a witness, right? And you get insight into vrittis. What are these vrittis? And once you get proficient in observation, so you become quiet with tapas, you become observant or sakshi with swadhyaya. Then the third thing is Ishwar Pranidhana. So there's another meaning of Ishwar Pranidhana, which is to leave the fruits of your action to Ishwar. But here the meaning is that you then get a glimpse of the inner awareness. You get a glimpse of your consciousness, which is still, which is pure awareness. You get a glimpse, right? And that inner awareness is Ishvara Rupa. So Ishvara is in the cosmos, Ishvara is inside you. That consciousness, inner awareness is Ishvara, right? So tapa, which is practice, swadhyaya, which is observing yourself, and then finally through observation becomes quiet, and then when you touch that silence, that is Ishvara. Okay. So in the same chapter, he talks about this connection between pancha kleshas and karma. So the pancha kleshas are the 5 human afflictions, and that is at the root of suffering. So the first affliction is avidya or ignorance. And what is ignorance? You take the visible world as existent. You don't have the right knowledge, you don't have the wisdom to know that the world outside has got no self-existence. It is empty. It is shunya. It is everything in the world is born, it comes, it stays, and then it goes. Everything in this world. And it's got no existence. It's like a appearance. Okay? So, but because of avidya, which is beginningless, you feel that those things are real. And then you go after them. If you think it's real, then you go after them. Okay? So avidya, then the first thing from avidya is asmita, which is you have a sense of, you identify yourself with your mind and body. You think myself is my mind and the body. So the sense of I is the fallout from avidya. And that is when there is I and others. The duality is there. Duality, right? And because of avidya, because you see all these objects you feel are real, then you go after those objects for your happiness. I say, ye hoga, so I'll be happy. Okay. And you also develop an instinct to avoid things which are painful. So it's called raga and dvesha. Raga is to go after things which you think will give you pleasure, and dvesha are things you run away from, which you think will give you pain. So avidya leads to asmita, and because you are identified with the objects outside, you are, you're going after those objects for pleasure and avoiding objects of pain, right? One more thing which happens is that you cling to life because you think your mind, body is what is real. So you don't want to die. A wise person, a person who has reached that wisdom, knows that death doesn't exist. Nobody dies. Okay, but because you don't know, you cling to life. It's called abhinivesh. So these are the 5 kleshas: avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. And this is a root of human suffering, because the kleshas will propel you, will give you desires and aversions, and will propel you into actions. And when you take those actions, it gives you your karma. So this klesha, karma, klesha, this cycle perpetuates, and you remain wandering in samsara. Okay, so he gives a very, very precise commentary on what kleshas. And then finally in this chapter, he talks about Ashtanga Yoga for the novice yogi. Ashtanga Yoga are the 8 limbs of yoga: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Okay. The 3rd chapter, Vibhuti Pada, is another very, very interesting chapter. So as I said, Ashtanga Yoga, the last 3 steps are dharana, dhyana, samadhi. It is meditation. So once a yogi can concentrate, it is called samyama. He can concentrate on any object. What happens if a yogi concentrates on a plant or a flower, just as an example? With that concentration, he becomes the flower. So he gets all the knowledge of the flower. He is the flower, so he gets all the knowledge of the flower. And this is just an example. Okay. The other thing to understand is whatever is there in the nature outside is within you. So all the 5 elements are within you: air, water, earth, water, fire, air, and space, all within you, right? The energy in the cosmos is within you as prana, pranic energy, right? The intelligence in the universe is within you as consciousness. So everything which is in the Brahmand, in the macrocosm, is in you, in the pinda or the microcosm. So the yogi can do a special kind of concentration on each of these things within and gain its powers. Now, this is how yogis can do things which seem miraculous to us. This is how you can find a yogi sitting in a dhoti on top of a snow-clad mountain in -40 degrees. Okay. This is how a yogi can suddenly disappear. So all these powers are not magical. It is only because the yogi has gained the power to manipulate nature at his will. And again, whatever is there in nature outside of you is there inside of you. You gain that power inside, you gain the power outside also. Okay. What Patanjali cautions is that these powers are not to be displayed. These powers are not to be used. So therefore, uh, before you reach the state, the yogi must have very, very pure heart and pure mind. He should be very clear that I want Kaivalya. If that purity is not there, then the yogis can get caught up in the powers they get, and they can get misled, and they start showing off their powers, and then they fall. They fall so hard, it's called yog bhrash. They fall so hard, it will take them lifetimes to come back. So Patanjali says, do not show off these powers, okay? And the fourth chapter is Kaivalya Pada, which is about moksha. And I will very quickly go through what I have already covered in the last 2-3 lectures, okay? So what Patanjali says, the yogi can use the powers which he has obtained through samyama, through special concentration, for good, to burn up his karmas faster. Because once you have a karma, the karma has to flow. Once a karma is there, it has to manifest. So a yogi cannot move further till the karma flows out. So a yogi can do things to burn those karmas, to kind of dissipate those karmas faster. How does he do that? He can create artificial bodies of himself. He can clone himself. He can create his own artificial body and mind. He can create 10. There'll be 10 Atul Sinhas. Okay. But those are artificial. 9 are artificial. The real Atul Sinha is here. But the 9 are artificial. And each mind body can experience some karma. So instead of one mind body experiencing karmas in some sequence, there are 10 of them which are experiencing karmas altogether. So that's how he can burn his karmas faster, right? Then he covers the concept of samskara, or vasana, or karmic impressions. Now, this is very important. See, desire is beginningless. Beginningless. Sure, I mean, the universe is without a beginning, and desire is without beginning. So once you have a desire, you are compelled to act. You can't stop it. Can't stop it. Once you have a desire to eat ice cream, very difficult to suppress it. You can suppress it even for 1 day, 2 day, 3rd day, you'll go and have ice cream. So once you have a desire, you are kind of compelled into action to either fulfill that desire, or you can get frustrated for that desire also. You can be disappointed. Okay. But a desire leads to action. And once the action is over, that experience of that particular action gets grooved in your psyche, grooved in your mental space. So that groove in the mental space, it's called samskara, or it's called vasana. Okay. And a combination of all those samskaras will give you your tendencies and your character. So that's why, in common language, we say, uske samskar achhe hain, ya uske samskar bure hain. So that is where it is coming from. So samskara will give you your tendencies, it will give you your character. That's why some people are pleasant characters, some people are sufferable characters. It's because of their samskaras. It also gives you tendencies. So some people want to be with people all the time. They're going to pubs, parties. So they have that kind of rajasic, very rajasic samskara. Some people want to sit back, quiet. They want their quiet space. Without their quiet space, they can't function. They read, they contemplate, they meditate. Okay, so they have that kind of tendency. Some people are very dull. They're very heavy samskar. They're sleeping all the time. They're lethargic. So this samskara gives you your tendencies, right? And these are samskaras which give you tendencies and characters which will propel desires in a particular direction, which will lead to action, and more samskaras, action, more samskaras, action, more samskaras, and then you're caught up in samsara. Okay. The third idea which he covered in this chapter in Kaivalya Pada was the concept of time. Very interesting. So you can see time at two levels. At the mundane, conventional world, the world of duality, the world of objects, right? The world we are in just now, time moves sequentially. You move from now to the future, when the future becomes the present, and then further into the future, the past, present, future comes in a sequence, right? In conventional. But when a yogi transcends time and things, he can see everything in one go. He can see from beginningless past to the endless future in one, like a worm, right? So he can see past, present, future in the now. Right now, the past, present, and future all exist. Okay. Now, this is an experience, and it's a very fascinating experience, but we can only understand it conceptually, which unfortunately. But there's an explanation to this. And the explanation to this is that the substratum of the world is the Purusha, is the consciousness. It is unchanging. It is constant. It's unborn, undying. It is constant. It is pure awareness. That's the sub. And I can't even explain substratum to you. If I explain to you as a tabletop, then what happens on the edge of the table? So there's no edge. There's nowhere else. The substratum is all there is. There's nothing outside the substratum, nothing underneath the substratum. And everything which is impermanent, which all this world of objects, all this appearance are doing their dance on that substratum. And there's nothing else but the substratum. So the past cannot fall off anywhere because the substratum is all there is. So the past exists in the substratum in energy form. You know, quantum physics, energy and mass are interchangeable. So it exists in energy form. The present has a form. You can see me, I can see Neelu, we all have a form, right? So the present exists in form, the past exists as energy. The future similarly cannot come up from anywhere. It has to remain in the substratum. So the future also exists as an energy. So the past, present, future all exist at the same time. And the substratum is the Purusha, which is constant, pure. And on that, the whole world of time, space, cognition, perceptions, objects, gunas, they are all undergoing ceaseless change, all changing all the time. And we think that, you know, we can get pleasure out of it, which is mistaken. And that's why there is suffering. Okay. So, and it provides that substratum. All right. So this is what I had covered till the last time. And today we will cover Kaivalya, the last 10 shlokas. All right. So it takes you through the steps, the final steps of Kaivalya. So the first one, the shloka 24, says that although there are innumerable desires in the mind doesn't act for itself. The boss of the mind is the Purusha. Consciousness is the boss. It works for the boss. But it's desires that keeps the mind functioning. Without desire, the mind will be transcended. Mind will disintegrate, which is the goal. Okay. So it's like a worker in a factory. The worker is working with machines to produce something, right? But the worker is not working for the machine. What is being produced is for the owner of the factory, for the management of the factory. right? So similarly, the desire is the machine of the mind. I mean, that's what keeps the mind functioning. But it is creating experiences for the Purusha. So this whole vasana, samskara, action, karma, experiences is all for the Purusha. And why is it? Why is this happening? Why are we in samsara? So the whole funda is that we are going through the experiences, birth after birth after birth after birth, and one day we say, बहुत हो गया. अब I know इसमें कुछ नहीं. I've seen through it. I've seen through all these objects, and इसमें कोई happiness नहीं. His happiness in this is fleeting. And then you say, I want something deeper. And once that happens, then you start looking within. And then you go into the pure awareness of your consciousness. So look at the mind as a bridge. To the north of the bridge is the world outside, and you are grasping at all the objects using the same mind. And when you get fed up of that, then you go south into yourself and into the pure awareness. So this is the design. This is the design. This is the nature. This is the design, and this is how the reason we are all here is because we have set to whatever, some extent, some to more, some to less extent. We are saying outside world, theek hai, but there's something more. We all have that realization. That's why we are here today. Okay, and that is why it is said the mind works for the Purusha. So it keeps on birth after birth. Your consciousness keeps rising from very gross to more subtle to ultimately to reach the absolute. That is the journey. All right. Then in the 25th shloka, he talks about Viveka Kyati, or it is the yogi reaches a stage where he can separate consciousness from the mind. Okay. So his awareness becomes perfect, and he can separate consciousness from the mind. He can separate, in yoga term, Purusha from Prakriti, from consciousness from nature. He can separate that. And when that happens, he can become a witness. He's no longer doing anything. He's simply watching. He watches the birds sing. He watches his own blood circulate. He watches his thoughts move. And he doesn't identify. His ego is not there. He doesn't identify anywhere. He does not say, I'm the body, I'm the mind, I'm this thought, I'm my anger, I'm my happiness, I'm my sadness. He doesn't say all that. He just is a witness. So all that anger, sadness, her thought are just going up and down, and he's right now completely detached from it, completely separated from it. And then he reaches a stage where he wants to transcend even this consciousness. This witness consciousness. He wants to transcend that also. And when that happens, it becomes static. And the difference in Purusha and Prakriti become very, very, very clear. Then he sees that all this samskara, vasanas, they constitute the structure of the mind, and his whole history of going after objects was but a means for higher realization. That was the purpose. He didn't know it then. Now he can see it. And he sees that the purpose of the mind is to transcend itself, to finish all desires. When the desires stop, desire is the machine of the mind. Desire stop, mind stops. It dissolves itself and experiences Kaivalya. So the step before Kaivalya is to discriminate between Purusha and Prakriti, right? And then the mind becomes kind of inclined towards a Kaivalya. And here he makes a very, very, very startling revelation, Patanjali. He said, the last many lectures we have been saying that, this dhyana, samadhi, these are all at the level of higher consciousness. He says these are all relative experiences. He disappoints you. So all this dhyana, samadhi, ananda, all relative experience, all mental factors. This is not the real thing. He gets that realization. And then he develops a very peculiar, unconscious sense of renunciation. He develops a very strong sense of vairagya, where he even has no attachment to even bliss and knowledge. Wo bhi kya? And he says even this consciousness needs to be transcended. Okay? So he says all this is all part of Prakriti, and this needs to be transcended. And when that happens, a stream of grace, a higher power, stream of grace enters, and all his clinging is gone, and he is completely attracted, like how iron file is attracted to a magnet. He is completely attracted towards this Kaivalya. Okay, but Patanjali warns that even here there are fluctuations, because when this happens, his karmas are burnt, seeds of karma are gone. He's moving towards Nirbhit Samadhi. But even then, there are some fluctuations. They're not very, he will never come down again because his karmas are burned, but there's still fluctuation because traces are left. The traces of karmas are left. And so there's mild fluctuations are there. And he has to continue for those karmas to burn. And here he introduces this idea of dharma meg samadhi. So in that space, he reaches the finest state of samadhi called dharma meg samadhi. Over here, he develops he complete detachment for enlightenment too. He doesn't want, his desire, he has been so far driven by a desire towards Kaivalya, but now the vairagya is so deep that he's freed from the desire for moksha also. There's no desire for moksha. He has no idea of gaining anything or reaching anywhere. He has no ambition, no interest. All desires are destroyed. Mind is destroyed. There's nothing to work with. There's no mind. Okay? There's no attachment to anything. And this is when you reach that state, then dharma mega, which is the gates open, and the shower of the experience of Sat Chit Ananda descends into you. This is when you reach Nirbhit Samadhi. The dharma makes samadhi. It does two things. It destroys even the traces of your karma. So it cleans you up, right? And it kind of opens the door, and you are in then the final Sat Chit Ananda. You are into a new field of existence. Now you have no karma, no klesha. You are in Kaivalya. And as Patanjali has kept set right through this book, that Kaivalya exists in you right now, all of us right now. He's only veiled from us. At this level, the veil is removed, and you are in that state of bliss, in that Sat Chit Ananda. Okay, and here the gunas come to an end, right? The law of cause and effect come to an end. The purpose of gunas was to create experiences for you, for you to reach Kaivalya. And both its purpose has been fulfilled. So gunas retire. And the whole series of existence for this particular yogi comes to an end, from unmanifest to manifest, from inanimate to animate, from vegetable to animal, from animal to human, and from human to superhuman, right? Finally, another startling thing which Patanjali says in the end, he says, it is possible that there are more stages after Kaivalya. Some rishis and the Buddha have alluded to it. What these are, we cannot know. Okay, I will end with the great Vivekananda. So this is the best ode to Prakriti which we also know as Shakti or the Devi, I have come across in all my readings. He says, nature's task is done. This unselfish task, which our sweet nurse nature had imposed upon herself, she gently took the self-forgetting soul by the hand, as it were, and showed him all the experiences in the universe, all manifestations, bringing him higher and higher through various bodies, till his lost glory came back and he remembered his own nature. Then the kind mother went back the same way she came for others who have lost their way in the trackless desert of life. And thus she is working without beginning and without end. And thus, through pleasure and pain, through good and evil, the infinite river of souls is flowing in the ocean of perfection of self-realization. Thank you.
Wow, so professionally done.
You can put on your mics. You can put on your microphone.
Block on precision, like the parliament. I don't think I can be the, what do you say, the speaker of Lok Sabha or the vice chairperson of the Rajya Sabha.
The Lok Sabha, with this talk, I will not last 1 minute. I will be booed out.
I can only request all the esteemed honorable members present that what we will do is we will try a new thing. We will try a new thing that each member present, we shall one by one allow them on the basis of the talk, whatever they have genuine question or query. So we can start by how do we designate? Do we designate by age-wise? That will be an insult to the elders.
Just do left to right or something like that.
So, no, I think then the easier way to do is women are always empowered. Meenakshi Didi has been listening very, very.
तो तुमको तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आया. कैवल्या में मेल फीमेल खत्म हो जाता है. You are Ardhanarishwar. You are in the, the Shiva Shakti in a tight embrace.
I think she should be leading the front, followed by Neelu Bana, and then by Meghna, and then the gents term will come. So Meenakshi Didi, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Atul, for taking us through a text that I may not have read on my own. And looking at the title, I may have discarded it as something to do with yoga. So I have been doing yoga, for many years. And I have always thought that Patanjali's yoga is just that, the various kinds of asanas that one does. He has chronicled all of that. That this is an Upanishadic kind of a text, which is talking about Advaitic philosophy, which is talking about going from the gross to the subtle, which is talking about centuries of awareness before we can come anywhere close to even knowing what Kaivalya is an eye-opener for me. So thank you for that. I don't have a direct kind of a question because I know what is being said over here in terms of its theory, right? In terms of language and words. When that experience will come and how committed one is towards getting that are areas of tremendous self-doubt. If there is something you can throw light on, some kind of faith that will say, do it and you will get it. Or is it really just do what you're doing and then the grace will come, or something that you have experienced which you can share? Because I really don't even know what that abhyasa is or what the swadhyaya is to be able to, one reads and one does, and one acts and one says, okay, no desire. But I don't even know if I'm anywhere close to understanding the experience of Kaivalya.
Okay, I've got your question and I'll take it up. Anybody else? Who was the next one? You said Neelu. He said Neelu, no?
Okay, so thank you, Atul Bhaiya, for inviting me for this talk today. I did read the Patanjali Yoga Sutra in 2011. We had a book club, and at that time we were going through a very difficult phase in our personal lives. My father-in-law was very ill, and we had to take care of him, of course. And that book reading really helped me. And at that time, one of the subjects that we did read on was Tapas, Swadhyaya, and Ishwar Pranidhana. And since I was in a situation which tested me, I could apply all these three principles immediately. And perhaps that might help in understanding how we can, apply these principles in life. He was ill. Let me just share this with the group. He was bipolar, and he was also physically ill. He was in the ICU, and so the self-study which I did at that time was that I did not want to be in that situation. It was difficult. I did not like being in that situation. I did not like having to take care of a person of that so difficult. So, but that was my self-study. That was my self-awareness. And what I worked on was that the need of the hour was to take care of this person, of a human being who was related to me, who was my husband's father. So I worked on that, and I overcame that negativity. Yeah. And I helped in taking care of him. I even sat by his bedside. I sang to him. I read stories to him. He was in a coma. And I do believe that may have helped in his final journey. I hope. But I did not expect anything, because that was, like you said, Ishwar Pranidhan is then you leave the fruits to the higher powers. Ki uska kuch fayda hua, nahi hua. But at the end of it, I felt like I had done my job. So Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishwar Pranidhan, I thought I had applied what I read.
In that
perhaps applied in that situation in this manner. So you can tell me if I was right or wrong.
No, absolutely. That was experience, and that reading helped you in your life. I mean, that's what more can you ask?
Yeah. So those were the three principles, and I think I could use them.
Yep. Excellent. Who was the third one you said, Rajiv? Meghna.
Meghna is the third one.
Thank you, Atulji, for that beautiful talk. I mean, you summarized it so well. So it was great listening to you. And no questions as such, but I just have this little doubt on the Abhinivesh Klesha. I feel that Patanjali has sort of overgeneralized it, because I just know so many people who sort of don't have it, the clinging to life. In fact, I know people who have, gone to Switzerland and taken euthanasia, and all my friends also have done it. So I personally also don't. I mean, there might be a fear of old age. There might be a fear of disease. There are so many fears. But fear of death and clinging to life, I find it a sort of generalization. Rest of the kleshas I agree on. So I don't know whether I'm right or wrong. That is my only doubt in the whole sutras. Ki thoda generalistic statement lagta hai.
So let me just answer that. So the thing is that at a mundane level of consciousness, if you have seen a person dying, which many of us might have. Hello, some disturbance. Huh?
Gana ga rahe hain.
Acha. There is a your body clings to life. You see a dying person, the body will cling to life. Okay.
But the body also gives way, right?
It gives way ultimately, but it fights. It fights automatically. It is fighting. It's clinging to life. So what is happening is, for example, your blood, for a dying person, the blood is moving upward. So to keep your heart and the brain functioning. You see a dying person, you touch his or her feet, is very cold, because they're not required over there. So body is clinging to life, right?
So it's not the mind.
Mind also, it's mind also. Mind is the intelligence, no? It's the intelligence mechanism. So it is commanding the blood. Okay, move up. All that stuff is happening. There is a clinging to life which is very instinctive, natural thing. But I was reading a Buddhist text which describes death, how death happens, and if you can die in a very evolved state, then you can just watch the process.
Which is very difficult, very, very difficult.
Yeah. So
because
that is
I saw
one.
my father also dying. I mean, and there was absolutely no clinging to life. He suffered about 4-5 months, and his only way was to, get out of this.
But at a subtler level, this clinging is happening.
It is happening. Every part of him was like, I want to get out of this. So
yeah, that is okay. You want to get out of his suffering. You want to be released from suffering.
हाँ, तो ऐसा नहीं है कि हम पीड़ा में हैं फिर भी हमें जिंदा रहना है, जान है तो
जान नहीं है, but
वो सब फंडे नहीं.
It is it's an unhappy situation. So it is some variation of situation. But a yogi can just decide.
Yeah, you have to transcend the mind and body, right?
Transcend, yeah. You can get anything.
Difficult process.
Yeah.
Hopefully something.
Atul, I also think there has to be ananda. No? There has to be joy.
Yeah.
It cannot be an option where I'm done with life and I'm going.
Yeah, correct.
No, but when you are suffering so much, how do you get the joy is the whole point.
Yeah,
when all your bones in the body are broken,
we had
find the joy. It's
I know.
Not easy.
You missed it. There was another friend of mine who's passed away. He used to attend the talks. He had a lung transplant and it failed. And he talked to all of us. And he was very the most comfortable with death. And one morning his daughter called and said he's passed away.
Well, I see people, many people comfortable with death, not comfortable with life.
ये किसके बारे में आप बता रहे हैं?
ये अपना रमेश.
Oh shit.
He died about a month ago. He died.
Can I interject?
He attended many shows.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, please interject. Who was that? Neelu?
Yeah, me. To what Meghna ji said about death. Even I saw my mom was in her last stages in the last week before she passed. She seemed to be in a stupor, and she just was not going. The doctor said any time she will go. So she had accepted that she's going to die, but she just wouldn't let go. So my father, Atul bhaiya, my father, how spiritual he is. So he sat down near her, he held her hand and he said, Usha, the bliss that you have come from is the same bliss that you have to go back to.
Wow.
So just go. And by evening, she was gone.
Permission mil gaya.
He knew what to say. She went.
Good. Anybody else who? Mukul bhaiya?
No, we have got
मेरा एक क्वेश्चन होगा.
बोलिए मुकुल.
मेरा एक
हाँ.
ये आफ्टर अटेनिंग द मोक्ष, वो स्टेज को अटेन करने के बाद में आई बिलीव दैट इज द लास्ट स्टेज. उसके बाद कोई बाकी नहीं रह जाता है.
हाँ.
अब मुझे ये जानने की इच्छा है कि लोग उनका जो है आत्मा अपीयर कर जाएगी,
ये ब्रेकिंग ऑफ,
उससे जो है फ्री कर देंगे अपने आप को, और दे विल स्टिल प्रेफर यू सी टू रिमेन अलाइव.
So
what clear नहीं है क्या?
नहीं, समझ गए. So there are this is all
दो ही चीज है. या तो अपने आप को जो completely छोड़ दिया, या जो है still they prefer to stay, and जहाँ जो अचीव किया है उसको लोग स्प्रेड करें लोगों के बीच में. क्या होता है?
तो ये जो मैं आपको बताऊंगा वो सिर्फ शास्त्र में लिखा है. हमको तो कुछ अब खुद तो नॉलेज नहीं है, बट ये शास्त्र में लिखा है कि दो तरह के लोग होते हैं। एक होते हैं कि जो चले जाते हैं, मैंने वो पूरा मोक्ष में, जो ब्राह्मण है, जिस जो भी है,
मोक्ष में मोक्ष का
वही
मतलब ये है कि अपने आप को शरीर त्याग देना, वो चले गए, मिल गए।
कि
बट
वो मिल गए।
स्टिल व्हाट आई हैव हर्ड, बहुत नॉलेज है कि वो रहते हैं।
नहीं, वही तो बोल रहा हूँ ना।
और रहते हैं तो जो अचीव किया
वही
उसको
दो तरह के लोग होते हैं जो मैंने पढ़ा है। कुछ लोग चले जाते हैं और कुछ लोग वो
चले जाते हैं।
लास्ट स्टेज नहीं क्रॉस करते। वो बोलते हैं कि अभी हमको जो दुनिया में जो लोग हैं उनको हमको मदद करना है। तो ये जो सिद्धा जो होते हैं ना,
अच्छा,
तो
ये जानना, मतलब उनका एक मिशन रहता है, एक पर्पस रहता है रहने का, कि अभी हमारा वो नहीं आया है जो मेरा एक लोगों के बीच में जो है इस नॉलेज को हमको या इस चीज को पहुंचाना है।
तो वो जीवन मुक्त हो सकते हैं
ये
या
ज्ञान है। तो लास्ट स्टेज का ज्ञान लोगों के बीच में तभी आएगी जब उसको किसी ने अटेन किया है, और अटेन करने के बाद लोगों को अपना वो एक्सपीरियंस शेयर किया है, तब वो मालूम होता है कि वो लास्ट स्टेज का क्या होता है। और वो डिसअपियर कर गया तो
वो लोग बोलते हैं कि जो लास्ट स्टेज का एक्सपीरियंस होता है उसको आप शब्द में नहीं बोल सकते। बुद्धा ने भी वही कहा था, उसको आप डिस्क्राइब नहीं कर सकते, इनडिस्क्राइबेबल। हमारा जो भी एक्सपीरियंस है सब डुअलिटी का एक्सपीरियंस है। वो तो कंप्लीट नॉन डुअल है। उसका जो उसको आप शब्द, इसीलिए
शून्य
फेमसली जो बुद्ध भगवान थे, शाक्य मुनि बुद्धा थे, वो कभी बोले ही नहीं। वो लोग पूछते थे उससे कि क्या होता है, तो एकदम चुप रहते थे, क्योंकि वो बोलते इसको बोल नहीं सकते। लेकिन वो ये बोल सकते हैं कि ऐसा कुछ है और आप ये कीजिए, आप अपना ध्यान कीजिए, अपने आप को प्यूरिफाई कीजिए, दुनियादारी के पीछे मत दौड़िए, ये सब बोल सकते हैं। और आप आइए हमारे संघा में, आइए हमारे मठ में, आइए हमारे अंडर में, आइए, हम आपको सिखाएंगे कैसे करने का है, ये सब कर सकते हैं। लेकिन वो क्या है, वो जो वहां पहुंचे हैं वो लोग डिस्क्राइब नहीं कर सकते, बिकॉज इनडिस्क्राइबेबल। हमारे पास कोई वर्ड ही नहीं है। मेरा जितना हम लोग का जितना वोकैबुलरी है वो सब ये दुनिया का वोकैबुलरी है। कि वो मुकुल भैया हैं, उनके पीछे सफेद दीवार है, वो चश्मा पहने हैं, लेकिन वो जो ट्रांसेंड करके अल्टीमेट चले गए, तो जहाँ जो नॉन डुअल हो गया, सब चीज एक हो गया, उसमें कोई वर्ड ही नहीं, उसको डिस्क्राइब ही नहीं कर सकते।
कैन एक्सपीरियंस।
ठीक है, so nice of you. Thank you gentlemen. I'm leaving.
Okay,
I'm leaving, sir.
All right.
जो खुद गुजर रहा होता है उस स्टेज से, he can experience that. He might not be able to explain, लेकिन वो खुद तो
obviously खुद experience।
हाँ, तो कैवल्य is एकांता, correct?
You can say Kaivalya is basically you go beyond this mundane existence into,
exactly.
State of it described in our shastras in Advaita as Satchitananda.
Exactly. I had a unforgettable experience doing abhyasa for through vipassana. And then came suddenly, I don't know, I mean, even I'm astonished at how I could reach that stage which I could experience fantastic, but I could not explain. But I got scared. And it took me a while to come out of that stage. Then I realized that there is something, but then my machine started working again, come back. So brought me back again to this, in this world. But it is there.
Now you can go back.
Yes. No, but then again, other thing is our life has been divided in 4 stages, 4 ashrams. Yes, 4 duties. Unless the duties are over, then one can also in peace go to that stage. That is also hindrance for somebody. That's how people are stuck in this world. And so my machine is still working. I'm still stuck. So thank you very much. It was fantastic, Dr. Atul Sinha.
All right.
I was just mesmerized to hear you as usual, and it's just fantastic. I mean, I have no word to appreciate you, and it is so kind of you that you put it in a very clished language in a very simple language, simple way, though it's still not easy to grasp for me everything, but by and large, it gave me more interest and insight into it, and might follow you further. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Vinod. You're mute. You're muted.
Yeah. Yeah, Atul. So, you know, what is intriguing to me after going through Patanjali's, you know, you have taken us right to the end.